it can go from a human into a star. There's going to be at some point where the pigment of the skin itself, bone structure, vital organs, they're all going to become. It's interesting because the visual aspect, it looks plasticky. I can't even say it. Plasticky. I don't even know how to say that, but you know what I mean. There is a transparency that does occur with the skin and the bones, because the actual being is reflecting the depth within that is both creative and colorful in internal ways, but also the understanding becomes that vivid. So it's then the question, is the color of the skin, does it match? Does even the color of the organs match? Now this is a level of, quote, customization. It sounds like it, but in fact it is sinking to your eternal uniquism. A star, when going from a physical being, eventually becomes Ura-like. And essentially it's the understanding of Ura. The body has to go through a metamorphosis of many quantified levels. There can't be a limit. There is no limit, and there is no limit in evolution. Thus, let's say for this being, there might be points where the skin might have a hue or a glow or a tint of some sort. Organs might feel like they're floating. The chest might feel as though there's a velvet cloud within. There are various degrees of how the feelings interact into messages. They discern into messages. Feeling itself is a message. And the depth of that feeling is the discernment itself. So it's unique when you think about this. You think about a feeling you've had at some point in your life that was amazing. Whether you realize it now or not doesn't entirely matter. But if you don't realize it, and realize that that feeling is a transpiration, it is a realization that you can live eternally in that feeling. Now, eternal is, of course, eternity. So it's not really logical to say that that feeling is it. That is you, and you're to live in it forever. Now, if you're one of those individuals who have had a spiking, like celestial feeling, to where it feels like the ultimate euphoria, where mentalities seem to flow faster than what time can perceive itself, that's entirely different. That type of means is entirely different. That is a glimpse of potential permanence. Ultimateism is permanence. That is why it's ultimate, because what is permanent? Can you truly define your permanent self? Can you truly define your permanent way of being, your permanent way of evolving forevermore? However, if you believe it, if you are expressing eternal values and expressions, that's going to be permanent either way. It will grow and evolve more, but it's going to be permanent. So permanence, it is not exactly to say it's fixated and always consistent, nothing more. It's not entirely like that. Permanent is to say, once you have defined something eternal and the consistency is quite present, that's a permanent trait. It never leaves you. But that realization is always there. That consideration is always there. Evolution is real time. It's always there anyway, the eternal spectrum. Thus, that also allows you to realize the eternal spectrum within, potential at least. However, potential is, in a sense, a word of scarcity, because it is almost a sense of doubt. But potential, in the most realistic terminology, is to say that I know myself extremely well, as an example, which is a true example. I know myself very well, but I know that evolution exists, and I know that higher potentials and more potential of becoming more and more exists. It's plausible. That's fine. And potential in that context is fine. The other example, though, that doesn't quite work is someone knowing their potential, but for some reason might feel that once they reach that potential, there's not going to be any other potential. we can't know the hierarchy of ourselves. However, we can know that eternity exists, which ironically is an extreme understanding. But to become as that understanding, to become as an eternity, it's entirely different. It was a good point that I brought up at going from physicality to a star, because essentially that's what we're experiencing. We're experiencing as a star. We're experiencing briefly, very, very briefly, as a nebula at times. This is a shutter effect. It's every now and then. But as a star, that's different. Crystalline and light-bodiedness, that is star-like. That's prism-like. That is to say that your thoughts are able to reflect and fractalize from a certain focal point of a subject and felt within and out the body. This is why meditation affects the body entirely, because the reflection is being quantified. The thickness of the self and understanding is being quantified. The body is becoming as a dream almost. The body is almost becoming as aura or nebula-like. Depends on the depth of the meditation, of course. Now, from the third eye, most are familiar with the third eye. The third eye is being able to see the world within. The basics of the third eye are not entirely all that advanced, because all beings have this ability. Animals are able to see within their own worlds, but it's very limited. And in unnatural circumstances, it's almost a question, but it does happen. Animals essentially have a third eye, but it's all based on awareness. And if the circumstances are not fair enough for that type of awareness, then, well, that's irony for you. But anyway, with the third eye, there is the fourth eye. And this is when you begin to be able to see celestial vision. This is when you are able to see awareness expansions and ranges that, if measured in space, could be hundreds to thousands of light years in measured space itself. Now, if you think about that, one thought, which is, let's just say, instant to, let's start with one subject that's instant. And you see the connections. This is the overview mode. And you see the bridges, which is the construct of how logic and rationalizing the obviouses exist. Once you know those exist, you can then see the bridges of how the connections then mend their understandings and discernment. If you are aware of your hybrid nexus, it is self-explanatory. The extensions and expansions are self-aware and self-occur.